Hi, everybody. Happy to be here, and I'm very, very glad that you all could make it. I hope you'll find this session interesting. We're going to talk mainly about the programmatic export to Excel of different visuals from a dashboard. And with that, let me first start by sharing my screen. Okay. All right. And with that, let me go straight to the agenda for today's learning session. So today I'm gonna talk a little bit about Amazon QuickSight. I'm gonna give you a brief introduction to Amazon QuickSight. I'm gonna talk a little bit about what paginated reports are and the new Snapshot APIs. And then I'm gonna spend most of the time discussing and talking about the programmatic export to Excel. I'm going to do a demo of various use cases, and then I'm going to end with a few references that I hope you'll find extremely helpful. With that, let me go to the first topic, Amazon QuickSight. For those of you who don't know what Amazon QuickSight is, let me tell you that QuickSight is a fully managed, scalable, machine learning powered business intelligence service that is focused on providing insights for everyone. Internal business users within your organization or your external customers. It was built with a few considerations in mind. It was built, first of all, to be auto-scalable and serverless. QuickSight is completely serverless and completely managed. This means that you don't have to worry about provisioning servers, choosing instance sizes, or capacity planning. We at AWS manage, maintain, and deploy the servers and software behind the scenes for you. You can start with a few users today, and tomorrow you can scale to hundreds or thousands or even hundreds of thousands of users without you having to manage anything. No licenses, no infrastructure. Again, all with zero servers to manage. It is also deeply integrated with other AWS services like Redshift, like Athena, like SageMaker, and many others. It is built from the start. It was designed from the start to deliver insights on demand. Authors can also add a forecast in a couple of clicks with QuickSight's built-in machine learning algorithms. Machine learning powered natural language narratives describe what's happening in the data in plain text narratives, which dynamically update as your underlying data updates or filters are applied. Lastly, QuickSight launched QuickSight Q, our machine learning powered natural language query processing that allows anyone in your organization to ask business questions using plain English language and receive highly accurate answers in seconds in the form of visuals. It is also embeddable. With QuickSight, you can embed rich interactive analytic capabilities directly into your application, SharePoints, websites, web servers, and so on and so forth. And you can also have all the capabilities that I just mentioned. Lastly, it is low cost, which means that it is by definition, by design, it uses by design a usage-based pricing for readers, which enables you to provide a license for every employee within your organization or embed at large scale. With that, let me go to explain what paginated reports are, because most of the session is going to be about how you can export paginated reports along with other visuals to Excel using APIs. Paginated reports is an add-on feature in QuickSight, which allows you to start creating and sharing customized and paginated documents. Paginated reports in the cloud enables you to deliver highly formatted reports to your users' inboxes. Reports can be scheduled for delivery as PDFs, Excel, or CSV reports. It can help deprecate legacy reporting systems. Users can view the same source of truth across dashboards and reports, and you do not have to decide between them, thus unifying authoring and consumption with no new learning. Paginated reports is serverless and auto-scaled like the rest of QuickSight, requiring no infrastructure or software management. With pay-for-usage and consumption-based pricing and auto archival up to 1 year. For those of you who have not seen a paginated report before, let me give you a brief idea of what it means. What you see right now is a classic dashboard, but then you can also turn that classic dashboard into a paginated report. And this is how it looks. It is a static report. It includes 80, in this case, 87 pages that are all scrollable. You can go to a specific page if you want. And it also contains many different snapshots. So you can go back in time. As I said, you can save up to 365 different snapshots in QuickSight. This is how a paginated report looks like. Moving on. For today's session, we're going to talk about how we can export table or pivot visuals or paginated reports to Excel using the new Snapshot reporting APIs. First, let me tell you that these APIs are available only with an Amazon QuickSight Enterprise Edition. And you need to have a subscription to Paginated report in order to be able to use this new Snapshot APIs. The Snapshot APIs there are 3 Snapshot APIs. The first one, Start Dashboard Snapshot Job, starts an asynchronous job that generates reports for a dashboard. The second API, the Describe Dashboard Snapshot Job, describes the status and configuration of the snapshot generation job. The third one, Describe Dashboard Snapshot Job Result, describes the result of a completed snapshot job. If the job has not finished running, this operation returns a message that says dashboard with a snapshot job ID you created has not reached a terminal state. There is another learning series that goes more in depth about these 3 Snapshot APIs. Please check it out if you're interested. In this learning series, we will focus on the export to Excel. Next, let's talk briefly about the syntax required by each one of these 3 dashboard snapshot APIs. You will see how this calls work in just a few minutes, but for the sake of simplicity and convenience, I'm going to list the syntax right here for all of you to see. So the first one is pretty simple. It's AWS QuickSight Start Dashboard Snapshot Job, and then you have to indicate, as you will see in a minute, a file that contains all the export settings. The second job requires an AWS account ID, a dashboard ID, and the snapshot job ID that you created in the first API call. And lastly, the last one has the same parameters as the previous one, and this is the one that will give us the results that we need, as you will see in a few minutes. Next, it is important for you to remember that in one single API call, you can actually generate 5 different CSV files, 1 PDF file containing a paginated report, as well as 1 Excel file with up to 5 different worksheets. This is important because I'm not sure how many of you know, but when you export a table or a pivot table to a CSV file, you can only export 1 visual per CSV file. So if you want to export out, let's say, 3 different visuals to CSV files, then you will have to generate 3 different CSV files. You cannot have those visuals in one single CSV file. But this is actually the advantage of exporting to Excel. The key benefits of exporting to Excel is, just as I mentioned, the fact that in one API call, you can export multiple different visuals to one single Excel workbook file. It also has the advantage of preserving the formatting of your data. It maintains important Excel formatting such as number and date types, text formatting, currency, column width, and headers, reducing post-export adjustments. Conditional formatting will be supported in the near future. It also comes with security measures. At this moment, you can the export to Excel is only offered to anonymous user level embedding, which is based on tag-based rules for programmatic access. But you also have the option of using row or column level security for scheduled reports via the QuickSight console. In order for you to run an API call to export visuals to Excel, you need to have a software development kit with the right IAM permissions to run the API calls. We will not cover how to do this in this session. There is plenty of information on the internet on how to do so. But in addition to the SDK, the software development kit, you also need to specify the export configuration settings. We recommend that you use a JSON file that includes all these configuration settings. And in the next slides, we're going to go over a few of such JSON configuration files. We're going to start with the simplest one. By the simplest one, I mean one in which you just want to export one visual to an Excel file without specifying any destination target, any filters or parameters, and no tag-based security. The configuration file, the JSON configuration file that you need to create is as simple as the one that you see right now on the screen. This configuration file requires you to add the AWS account ID, the dashboard ID, and then you need to specify the format type. In our case, since we want to export out to Excel, we enter Excel as the format type. For the selection scope, we're going to select selected visuals because from a dashboard, we only want to export out one single visual, not all the visuals in the dashboard. That's the reason why the selection scope is set to selected visuals. You need to indicate the sheet ID and the visual ID. In one of the next slides, I'm going to show you how you can easily get this information from the QuickSight console. Next, we're going to talk about a different customization JSON file, one in which you specify two tables or pivot tables to be exported out to an Excel file. This two visuals or two tables or pivot tables come from the same sheet. When they come from the same sheet, then all you have to do is just add the visual, the other visual that you want to add to the export settings in the visual ID section. I hope it is clear when you look at the screen, you know, if you look at the red boxes where you need to enter that information. What happens when you want to include in the Excel file multiple visuals that come from different sheet IDs, from different sheets of the dashboard? In such a case, the JSON configuration file is a little bit different because now you have to specify both sheets and their corresponding visuals. And this is the way you do it. Just remember that in one API call, you can export out 5 different visuals to one Excel workbook. One important thing that I would like to mention here is that the order in which you list the visual IDs in this statement in the JSON file determines the order of the worksheets in the final workbook. And if you look here, you can see that there are 3 different visuals. The first 2 are coming from the first sheet, and the third visual is coming from the second sheet. In such a case, the resulting Excel file will look like this. As I mentioned, the order in which you list the visuals will determine the order of the worksheets in the final Excel workbook file. Now, let's talk about output destination options. You have two options. The generated output can be stored in an S3 destination bucket. If the S3 destination is not provided, then a pre-signed URL will be automatically generated. Let's talk about what happens when you do not specify an S3 bucket. When you run the describe dashboard snapshot job result, you will get a pre-signed URL. This is how the pre-signed URL looks in the response to the describe dashboard snapshot job result. One important note here is that this pre-signed URL has a very short life. It is only active for 5 minutes. Once you get this, and in the next slides, I'm going to show you how to do this, how to get here. But once you see and you can get the URL, pre-signed URL, all you have to do is copy the URL starting with HTTPS, copy the entire URL, and then paste it into your browser, which will automatically download the Excel file onto your local machine. But if you do specify an S3 destination, the JSON file will look similar to what you see here on the right side of the screen. In the snapshot configuration section, there is an S3 destination statement that can be configured. Here, you have to indicate the bucket name, and you can also specify a bucket prefix. If you specify a bucket prefix, then all the generated files will be stored in a newly created folder called, in this case, snapshots, in your specified bucket. And this is how it will look in your S3 bucket. The first screenshot on the top shows you that the resulting API call has created a new folder in the bucket I specified. And when we look inside that folder, we see that an Excel file has been generated. Again, in the demo, I will go over the steps to show you how you can get here. There are other configuration options that you can use. At the time of this writing, the Snapshot API support anonymous users only. As such, they support using row-level security with tag-based rules to restrict access to a dataset when embedding dashboards for anonymous users. After you have tag-based RLS active on a dataset, you can pass them to the Snapshot API by editing the user configuration section, as you can see here on the left side of the screen. You can also include parameters in the snapshot configuration. The parameters act like filters on the exported data. The following example that you see here on the right uses a multi-value parameter called region param. And with that, we're going to go now into the demo section of our webinar. For our demo, we will use the AWS Command Line Interface, also known as CLI, in the AWS Cloud Shell. You can use any other flavor of the software development kit with your preferred programming language. If you use the Cloud Shell, as we will, then all the configuration files that will be part of the API calls need to be in your home directory. You either need to upload them manually into your Cloud Shell environment, or programmatically copy or move them to the Cloud Shell environment. First, Let me go back a little bit and show you how easy it is to get the dashboard ID, visual ID, and everything else you need. Navigate to your dashboard and then go to the table or pivot table you want to include in your export API. Click on the three dots, vertical dots or ellipses in the top right corner of the visual. Select Embed Visual, and then a new panel will open up to the right of the screen. Click on IDs for developers, and then you will have all the information you need right there. The dashboard ID, the sheet ID, as well as the visual ID. So this is how easy it is to get all the IDs that you need in the API call. Next, I'm going to show you how to use Cloud Shell if you want to follow along with this demo. In your AWS console, navigate to the icon, Cloud Shell icon, which is kind of in the middle of the screen. Click on it, and then at the bottom of the screen, there is a new terminal that you can maximize. Once you maximize, you will see something like this, the AWS Cloud Shell terminal environment. In the Cloud Shell environment, we typed an ls command, which lists all the files that we have in our home directory. So here in the terminal, we type ls, and we see all the files, and then we want to visualize one of the files with a vim command, and this gives you an idea of what file we're going to use in the next API call. This is a simple API call. We're exporting one visual to an Excel file without specifying any other parameters. And now we're going to start our first API call. This is the syntax, and this is how you feed the JSON file containing all the export customization settings to the API call. Remember that any such snapshot API call requires a snapshot job ID. The snapshot job ID can be specified inside the JSON file or outside, as is the case here. As you can see, I used the snapshot job ID outside of the JSON file. The snapshot job ID must be unique within a 24-hour period. Once you run the snapshot dashboard, the start dashboard snapshot job, you should see a response, and the status of that response should be 200, which indicates that the call went through. As you can see, the status is 200. Once you run this, now we can run the describe dashboard snapshot job. This API call requires three different parameters. One is the account ID. The other one is the dashboard ID. And then the last one is the snapshot job ID, the one that you indicated in the first start dashboard snapshot job ID. Once you run this, towards the end of the response, you will see the job status. It is either running, completed, or failed. If it is failed, you will see the errors for easy troubleshooting. In this case, everything went well, and the status is completed. This means that now we can run the third snapshot API, which is the describe dashboard snapshot job result. This API has the exact same parameters as the previous API, the describe dashboard snapshot job. In the response, you will see the S3, the URL to the Excel file. As I said before, all you have to do is copy and paste the URL into another web browser, and this will automatically download the file onto your local machine. So this is how the API works, and we used one simple JSON file that only had one visual exported out to an Excel. Now let's use another JSON file that has much more complex customization settings. We're going to use a JSON file. In our case, it's called multiple visuals.json. Let's look at the file. As you can see, the JSON file here is specifying multiple CSV files, a PDF, which contains a paginated report, as well as an Excel file. It also has bucket configuration settings, which means that now we are actually setting a destination for our files, for all the CSVs, PDF, and Excel file that will be created. We also specify a parameter. As you can see, once we scroll up right here in the parameter section. And we also use tag-based security. This is how the JSON configuration file looks like. The API calls will be very similar to the API calls you saw before. The only difference is that we have, of course, to feed the API call a different JSON file, and we have to give it a different snapshot job ID. The responses should be similar. The only difference is that when we run the describe dashboard snapshot job result, we will not get a URL, a pre-signed URL to use. Everything is going to be saved in the bucket that we specified in the JSON file. So this means that when we navigate to the S3 bucket that we specified, and by the way, in order for you to run the API call that saves files to an S3 bucket, then the user making the API call needs to have QuickSight access, write access to the S3 bucket. But as you can see, once we navigate to the bucket, we see that a new folder has been created with the title snapshots, which was the bucket prefix that we indicated in the JSON file. And inside, we see all the files that have been generated. 1 Excel files, 2 CSV files, along with a paginated report in the form of a PDF file. When we open the Excel file, we can see that it contains 3 different visuals. Before I close this presentation, I would like to mention a few references that I think you will find extremely useful. The first one of them is a new blog, New Enhancements in Amazon QuickSight, Programmatic Export to Excel Format. This guide is actually a more in-depth, comprehensive guide to how you can use the API to export data to Excel. But in this reference, in this list of references, you have many other links to different resources, like, for example, how to use the command line interface, how to run APIs, how a more in-depth understanding of the 3 snapshot export APIs, a link to the community, QuickSight community in case you have more questions, and so on and so forth.